Hey people, this is my weekly rundown of things in entertainment news that interest me, and I want to start off this video by talking about the story that has me most excited this week, which is the first trailer for the remake of Total Recall is coming out tomorrow. And they have a little odd 30-second trailer for a trailer, I'm not sure why they have that you can watch in the description that gives an idea of the visual style of the film and the tone of it. So that's kind of exciting. They don't show too much though. And they've also released this poster for the film that plays up the kind of reality versus false reality angle of the story, which is kind of interesting. I think people have compared the poster to source code and saying it's too similar, but whatever, it's a poster. But just to get into my feelings towards Total Recall, I'm very excited for this film. I watched the original a few years ago, and I thought to myself that it had the potential to be amazing if it was remade, because the original, obviously, it's made in the early 90s, so it's limited by the technology of its time in terms of special effects. And it's an Arnold Schwarzenegger film, so it's got a lot that comes with that kind of campiness with the one-liners, and the dialogue is kind of cheesy at times. And sort of the presentation of this story is a little bit silly. But at the core of it, there is this really great, interesting story there that was really original and something that I had never quite seen or read before, the style of this story. So I think it could be very interesting. So I'm kind of cautiously optimistic about this movie. This trailer is really big because it's going to kind of show if they're on the right track with this or not. But I did have the pleasure of being able to go to the panel at Comic-Con where they showed off some of the rough footage of it, and I was wowed by that. So I do have high expectations for this film, and it's one of my most anticipated of the year. I don't want to talk too much about it because I'm going to do a reaction to the trailer, either a trailer commentary like I have done a few times in the past, or just roll that into my weekly rundown next week. So that's all I've got for now. If you want to check out the trailer for the trailer, check that out, but definitely check out the full trailer for Total Recall coming tomorrow. The next thing I want to talk about is a new animated series called The Legend of Korra, which is the sequel to Avatar: The Last Airbender. I mentioned last week that the series was released officially by Nickelodeon online before their television premiere date, so I watched it last Sunday, and I must say that I was very pleased with what I saw. I'm a big fan of the original series, and it has a very dedicated, built-in, passionate fan base, so the expectations were very high, not just from me, but I think in general, because that series established a high standard of quality, so it was necessary for The Legend of Korra to meet that quality and justify continuing it, because you wouldn't want to see the show continued and then just feel that this was a disgrace to everything that the first series did and just kind of taint that reputation and the legacy of the show, sort of like the movie did. But Legend of Korra just, I think, meets that standard of quality in just about every respect. The animation and the action are still great. The writing, the dialogue, the humor is still great, and the overall design of this world is still really cool. I think it was impressive how they decided not just to go 70 years in the future and keep the architecture look exactly the same, because I think they could have done that with the way that the culture was in the first series, and say that they aren't really technologically based. They did advance the technology, and it has kind of a, I've heard it described as a steampunk look to it, combined with the original look of the Avatar: The Last Airbender world. And I want to say it's kind of a 40s vibe. It's kind of retro in a way, the feel of the show, and the look of their culture and the cars and everything. So very interesting look that's very different and distinct. It's still very true to what they established in the first series, but they've gone in a new direction, and it feels just like something new, and like it is the future of that world, which is cool. The cast, I find Korra to be a likable protagonist. She's not Aang, she's kind of rash, she's kind of in your face more, but not to an extent where it's off-putting and obnoxious. She's still a good character, and she's kind and not really arrogant, I'd say. The supporting cast of the show, Korra is mentored by Tenzin, who is Aang's son and an airbending master. And Tenzin has 3 kids who are all very entertaining. I don't want to say too much about them. And Korra eventually meets these 2 benders called Bolin and Mako, who is named after the voice actor who played Uncle Iroh in Avatar: The Last Airbender. So I don't want to give away too much about these characters, but definitely watch it. There are some similarities I can draw to characters from the original series, like Bolin is a little bit Sokka-like, Mako is a little bit Zuko-like, and I don't think they have any relation whatsoever to those characters. I'm pretty sure they don't, but they don't feel like, oh, well, this is just the new Zuko or this is just the new Sokka. They are their own characters, so that's cool. And I'm looking forward to seeing how things progress with these characters and how they develop and how they kind of shape this new series. Korra is older than Aang was in the Avatar: The Last Airbender. I think he was 11 at the start of that, and she's starting off at age 16. And I remember the creators saying that their audiences have grown up since the last series. Well, definitely since the beginning of the last series, but since they ended, it's been a while. So they wanted to kind of make a more mature show for their core audience who watched it back when it came out and has grown up a little bit along with it. I mean, I was already, I'm pretty sure, outside of the target audience when the original series premiered, and I felt like that one was maturely written enough to hold my attention. And I think even adults who watched it when it came out, they were interested in this show. So this one has an even more mature tone in some ways, but it's not too bogged down, too serious, and I think young kids can still watch it too, which is great. So I can go on rambling about how great this series is, but definitely I feel that you should watch it. If you're a fan of Avatar: The Last Airbender, most definitely watch this series, because you are missing out if you don't. If you're not a fan of Avatar: The Last Airbender, my top recommendation is to watch that series, get all the way through that, because it's really good, and then watch the series because it's also really good. But you don't have to watch the first series to enjoy this one. It explains everything rather well, and you don't feel confused about what's going on. Well, I don't think you do. I mean, I know the first series pretty well, so obviously I'm not confused. But I don't think you would be very confused to try to understand what's going on with the powers of these characters and what it means to be the Avatar and everything. So definitely recommend the show, and it's off to a great start. Hope it continues, and I'm almost upset that it's only going to last 26 episodes. It was originally intended as a mini-series that would only last 13 episodes, so I'm grateful that it is going to be 26, but it's not going to be as long as Avatar: The Last Airbender. But, you know, I'm glad that we got this series, so can't complain too much. The animated series Ultimate Spider-Man is premiering tomorrow, and they've released a new behind-the-scenes video with it, with the creators and cast talking about the new animated series. And that is, to me, one of the most convincing, impressive videos that they've released so far for it. It's the one that really kind of made me think the most that this could be very entertaining, this could be a decent series. But I'm still very apprehensive about it, because IGN released a review of it, and they are very enthusiastic. They gave it a 6, and it would be something that I'd be able to brush off. It's like, oh, that's one review. But the things that they criticized are things that I've been worried about since I have been seeing some of the videos they've released for this show, which is the kind of mainly the tone of the series, this emphasis on comedy that they have there. And they talk about how Spider-Man has always been a very comedic character with his quips and everything, so they wanted to put that as a focus for the show. And yes, he has been, but the style of comedy that they're going with isn't really that Spider-Man-y. They talk about how cartoony it is at times, and how they go to these very stylistic sequences where Peter will say something about how his spider sense is like a bell going off in his head, and they'll cut to a cartoony scene with Spider-Man with a bell for a head. And that's really not how the sense of humor for Spider-Man is, if you read Spider-Man comic books or anything. And they also talked about how Peter is that relatable character that people feel like they know, they relate to very well and could imagine themselves as. So they wanted him to be able to talk to the audience by breaking the fourth wall, and how that would set it apart from previous series. And while it does look like it's something that will set it apart, I feel like Spectacular Spider-Man did a great job of making Peter feel close to the audience, because they just let the audience hear what he was thinking at certain times, which was definitely enough for me. And that's how they do it in the comics. I mean, we read his thoughts when we're not reading what he's actually saying. And I'm pretty sure they did that in the 90s animated series too, so if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And this whole breaking the fourth wall thing, I mean, the IGN noted, that's very Deadpool, it's not Spider-Man. So between the style of comedy that they're going for and this breaking the fourth wall thing, you've got a series that doesn't feel like it's a very true Spider-Man series. And that's what IGN said. But that's the feeling that I've gotten so far just from watching a few videos that they've released. So I'm not really that surprised by it, and I won't be that surprised if I fully agree with that once I have seen this show in its entirety and watched a few full episodes of it. Another criticism they made was Drake Bell's voice acting, and that's something that I think I noted in maybe last week's video. Drake Bell's performance in it, from the videos I've seen, I don't want to make my judgment based and say that, oh yeah, I can fully evaluate it. But from what I've seen, it feels like this is me voicing an anime character right now. It's when you listen to Drake Bell in interviews, his voice sounds like something that could be a very good Spider-Man voice actor. I mean, it doesn't take that much imagination to imagine, well, that guy, if he just voiced Spider-Man, it would work. But it feels like he's raising his voice a pitch to try to be younger. Drake Bell's only in his mid-20s, so his voice isn't that deep, but it's not that necessary for him to try to create a voice to be Peter. He could be Peter by himself, just doing a very natural performance. And this could be Drake's fault, but I think it could be the direction of the series and how they're telling him to voice act for this. So I'm not sure, but I think that Drake definitely has the potential to be a solid Spider-Man voice actor. But from what I've seen, it doesn't look like he's doing as good a job as Josh Keaton did with the character on Spectacular Spider-Man. And yeah, as a person who loves Spectacular Spider-Man, I'm annoyed that this series doesn't look like it's going to be placing as much of an emphasis on telling great stories and being able to develop its characters as well and deliver the drama as well, since it's so comedically focused. But it's not, I don't think you need to blame Ultimate Spider-Man for the cancellation of Spectacular Spider-Man, because it wasn't related to that. I see people commenting, it's like, oh, they canceled Spectacular Spider-Man for this. No, they didn't. So don't take your anger from the cancellation of Spectacular Spider-Man out on Ultimate Spider-Man. But when you do have this great series that came before and it was canceled, I personally had the hopes that, okay, Ultimate Spider-Man is not going to be Spectacular Spider-Man. They're not going to do it exactly the same, but hopefully they will keep what that show did well and improve from there. And it doesn't look like they have done that. I mean, the animation of the show, I must say, looks pretty cool. I like the character designs, especially, I like Spider-Man's look more than Peter Parker's look, but overall I like the look of the show more than I like Spectacular Spider-Man. But in terms of the story and the voice acting and the overall tone, I think this is a step in the wrong direction from what I've seen. So I'm really hoping that I'm wrong with the series, and if I'm right, I'm hoping that they figure it out and correct themselves going forward with this, because it just doesn't look good. And from what I've read from somebody else, which I fully agree with, is that, yeah, it looks like they're making this a series for kids, but I feel that oftentimes people making an animated series overestimate how much they need to write at a low level for children to be able to enjoy and understand it. Batman the Animated Series was very maturely written. I think adults can watch that and enjoy it, but it's a show that kids watched. I mean, I had Mask of the Phantasm on VHS, and I've had that for as long as I can remember. It's a show that people of all ages can enjoy. And this Ultimate Spider-Man series looks like, oh, this is going to be a show that the little kids will like, but adults, I'm not sure. Getting back to animated series that I actually do like, there is a new still out for Avengers Mightiest Heroes Season 2 that shows off some of the guest appearances that they're going to be having in this new season. And if you don't want to be spoiled and want to be surprised by these appearances when they actually happen, don't watch this next little segment of the video. But it is pretty cool, so I think it's pretty exciting to watch. So skip over this if you don't want to watch it, but here comes the new still. As you can see, the shot features several new characters to the series. You got Spider-Man, Wolverine, Falcon, War Machine, Winter Soldier, the Vision, the Fantastic Four, Ant-Man, as well as Yellow Jacket, so it seems that Hank Pym will be taking up a new identity at some point. Luke Cage, Iron Fist, and this is all very exciting. It seems like they're opening up their universe a bit more. I'm curious to see who they'll have voicing Spider-Man, if they're going to have Drake Bell playing the character to have that continuity from Ultimate Spider-Man, or have somebody completely different voicing the character. If they don't go with Drake Bell, I would love to have Josh Keaton voice Spider-Man, so it sort of feels like a continuation of the Spectacular Spider-Man, but that's just wishful thinking. It'll be an interesting season to watch. And also I've included several interviews that have come out during the past week from the Avengers movie. So lots of little new details about the characters and the story. So if you're very interested in the Avengers movie, these are some interesting things to read. So that's really all I've got for this video. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked what you saw, please like, comment, subscribe, and tune in next time.